through the Strait of Hormuz, with Iranian armed forces coordinating the efforts. But the statement also says that due consideration will be given to technical difficulties for this process. Now, as talks between America and Iran begin in just a matter of 2 days, it's not just about who has won this war, it's also about who wins the negotiations. Iran has not only retained control over a critical maritime passage, its political regime has also withstood assassinations. So the question now is, does Iran sit on the table as a stronger negotiator or a weaker one? With that, let's also get to the breaking input that is coming in. It can potentially change the passage of any talks at all. Iran's Tasnim news agency is now reporting that Iranian officials will withdraw from ceasefire agreement if Israel's attacks on Lebanon continue. Remember, today there have been multiple strikes from Israel towards Lebanon, and that has been one of the conditions that Iran has put forth, that Lebanon should not be attacked in these 2 weeks, but the strikes have continued. Reports also cite officials who said that stopping war at all fronts, including Lebanon, was part of the 2-week ceasefire. As I said, with the US, Iranian media has also said that armed forces of the country are now identifying targets to respond to today's attacks by Israel against Lebanon. These reports have come, remember, after the Israeli military carpet-bombed cities across Lebanon, including the capital. A series of strikes have ripped through Beirut today. Heavy plumes of smoke cloud the skyline of the capital city. In fact, authorities have called on people to clear the roads in Beirut for ambulances to pass through. They've also said that dozens of people have been killed and more have been injured in these strikes. Israel, meanwhile, has said that the 2-week truce in its war with Iran does not apply to Lebanon. So that is one sticking point, apart from the Strait of Hormuz, that remains in the ceasefire agreement. That is the strikes on Lebanon. They have continued today, but Iran insists that if they do not stop, we are not coming at the negotiating table in Islamabad on Friday. This is happening simultaneously as Iran's Revolutionary Guard suggests that they have shot down Hermes 900 drone over southern Iran. In fact, it has also said that violations of the airspace will draw decisive response. And Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, just a short while back, has discussed ceasefire breaches in Iran and Lebanon in a phone call with Pakistan's army commander as well. And the IRGC is now warning that any foreign aircraft entry breaches ceasefire, and that is something that Iran has been reiterating about, that all of these strikes and attacks must stop before any kind of negotiations take place on these proposals that have been suggested by both sides for a lasting peace. So that's the latest that is coming in. Remember, this is extremely crucial as far as this ceasefire agreement is concerned. 2 weeks is the duration at which the entire world has its eyes on. But on the day that it has been announced, just simultaneously as all of this talk is taking place, there are strikes that have happened as well. Let me quickly get in my guest on the show. Andy Kesar is joining us, Senior Fellow at the National Security Institute from Washington, D.C. He's joining us. Andy, good evening. Welcome to WION. I want to start by asking you what you think of this 2-week ceasefire agreement, and why should the world believe, as the Trump administration would like the world to believe, that America has won this war, because the strikes are still continuing, the Strait of Hormuz is still in Iranian control, and members of the old regime are still executing protesters who protested against the regime in January. So how has America won this war?
Sure. Good evening. Nice to be with you. So what I'm looking at is, as far as a significant development, and for your viewers as well, is the emergence of Pakistan as an interlocutor. So typically in these types of negotiations, you would see a Gulf country like Qatar or Oman or regionally, say Turkey, act as an interlocutor between Iran and the United States. What's happened here, though, of course, is Iran has lashed out at each of those countries after the U.S. and Israeli strikes in Iran, which likely precluded their involvement as sort of a objective arbiter. So Pakistan emerging as a diplomatic leader is certainly a new development and an interesting one. We'll see what comes out of the talks on Friday in Islamabad, as you mentioned. So what is the U.S. position here? Well, I think from the U.S. position, they were not looking to change the regime. They were looking to change the regime's behavior and its policies in the region. And the truth be told, that that remains to be seen on whether or not that happens. Obviously, the U.S. and Israel struck important tactical and strategic objectives by eliminating 2 separate rounds of Iranian leadership, by decimating the Iranian Navy and Air Force. A foreign power has control over Iran's airspace. This should be no victory party in Tehran, but as you mentioned, they are certainly able to leverage the couple of items where they do have influence and control, namely the Strait of Hormuz and the oil markets globally.
So, Andy, it's interesting that you spoke of Pakistan as a diplomatic leader. Many experts believe that, perhaps Donald Trump was looking for a shoulder to sort of have this ceasefire through. That, look, we've suffered militarily. We're also suffering through the Strait of Hormuz. So we need a country to actually, put the onus on, or at least, say that, look, they are the ones who were mediating. So we thought that we should just withdraw and look at the ceasefire agreement and the proposal. But Donald Trump also spoke about China's role in getting Iran to agree to this deal. How are you looking at that? Because China, of course, has been one of the most crucial factors in this war.
No question. Their relationship with Iran, which is primarily an economic one, is an important factor here. I think it's very much in their interest to no longer see what we in the U.S. would say, $4 gasoline or the price of oil well over $100 a barrel for a sustained period. To me, that is China's primary objective. Of course, it is one of the countries where they do have a close diplomatic relationship, so they always would want to maintain that. They would not want to see a regime change there, and an autocracy that falls anywhere makes the leaders in Beijing nervous nonetheless.
So let me also quickly ask you, Andy, about the biggest choke point in this war, which has been the Strait of Hormuz. And there is a lot of speculation as to perhaps that US and Iran will reach a deal where they will control the strait together as a joint venture. Do you see that happening? Do you see that turning into a reality? Or this is just speculation amid this kind of an agreement?
It's difficult for me to imagine a scenario where the United States and Iran are cooperating militarily in such a contested area. Could I see both Iran and the United States as part of an international coalition to ensure safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz? Absolutely, I do think that's possible.
All right, that's going to be interesting for the world to see how that moves forward if that happens. For the moment, of course, Iran not being very pleased with the multiple strikes that have taken place in the West Asian region, particularly, of course, Lebanon, and now saying that we will not join the talks until and unless those strikes stop from the Israeli side. Andy Kaser, I'll leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us on WION and sharing your perspective.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
All right, let's also tell you how President Donald Trump has announced a ceasefire with Iran, claiming a complete victory. But this announcement has done very little to silence the growing calls from the Democrats for his removal. More than 85 Democrat lawmakers have now called for President Trump to be impeached or removed via the 25th Amendment. And most of these calls were triggered by Trump's threat to bomb Iran and end a whole civilization. That's the post he put out yesterday. Lawmakers Sri Thanedar and Jasmine Crockett sent letters to Vice President J.D. Vance and the cabinet asking to remove Trump by invoking the 25th Amendment to the Constitution. Representative John Larson, on the other hand, introduced articles of impeachment against Trump. However, just before the end of the deadline to act on his threat, Donald Trump announced the two-week truce with Iran. But several House Democrats made clear their calls for Trump's removal still stand despite this agreement. But minutes after Trump's announcement, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez renewed her calls for Trump to be impeached, saying that the Republican president's announcement on a temporary ceasefire changes nothing. She's claimed that the president has threatened a genocide and that he must be removed from office, whether by his cabinet or the Congress. Others echoed her sentiments as well. Lawmakers Melanie Stansberry wrote, and I quote, "Just because the president announces he's agreed to a two-week ceasefire moments before he threatened to commit war crimes does not mean he's suddenly fit to serve." Senator Ed Markey, meanwhile, welcomed the ceasefire but added that Trump cannot simply threaten war crimes. He urged the Congress to get back in session now to stop this war and remove Donald Trump. Now, Section 4 of the 25th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, remember, can be used to remove a president. But to initiate this, Vice President J.D. Vance and a majority of the cabinet must declare the president as unfit to discharge his duties. If the president contests this removal, the Congress must decide the issue, requiring a two-thirds vote in both the House and the Senate. Democrats lack the support, but their attack is an attempt to strike a chord with the public ahead of the midterms in November this year. Hungary is counting down to a critical parliamentary election on the 12th of April. The battle between the incumbent Prime Minister Viktor Orban and his political rival Peter Magyar is now heating up. But more than voters, the focus has now shifted to global leadership that has shown who they stand with. From morning till evening on Wednesday, America's Vice President J.D. Vance stood beside Viktor Orban, conveying that the Trump administration supports the Hungarian leader ahead of the elections. But Vance slammed the accusations of it being foreign election interference.
We love the people of Hungary, and it's an important relationship.
I've also been told that the Vice President of the United States coming and saying that Viktor Orban is doing a good job and is a helpful statesman to the cause of peace, that's foreign influence. But what's not foreign influence is when the European Union threatens billions of dollars withheld from Hungary because you guys protect your borders. That's apparently not foreign influence.
Now remember, it's rare for superpowers who are not allies to express support for the same leader. Not just the US, Russian leadership also has close ties with the Hungarian Prime Minister. The Kremlin, in its latest remarks, has accused several European countries of aiding Orban's political rivals.
Если говорить серьезно, то, конечно же,
But speaking seriously, many actors in Europe, in Brussels, would not like to see Orban win another election again. This is well known, it's obvious. And of course, they are actively aiding those who are running against him. They believe that the publication of such materials could harm Orban. We disagree with it. As for us, we treat with the utmost care the confidential nature of conversations held at high and top levels, and we do not support attempts to make the materials of such conversations public.
мы весьма трепетно относимся.
Now, on the one hand, Viktor Orban is seeking to extend his 16-year rule as Hungary's prime minister. The leader faces strong competition from Peter Magyar, whose popularity across polls is far higher than Orban's. More than domestic issues, the country's diplomatic slant has emerged as the undercurrent in this election. While many member states of the European Union face allegations for backing Magyar to make Hungary more pro-EU, countries with strong ties to Russia, including Moscow, face accusations of interference as well. In fact, Serbia's president has dismissed these claims while also saying that he personally would like to see Orban win.
Što se tiče priče o
As for the story about helping Orban, Viktor Orban is a great leader, extremely deserving for the best relations between Serbs and Hungarians, not only Serbia and Hungary, but Serbs and Hungarians. Would I personally like Viktor Orban to win? I have never hidden that. Would I misuse the army to interfere in Hungarian elections? I would never do that. I would never have the army interfere in Serbian elections, let alone in someone else's.
ne bih nikada da se meša u srpske izbore.
With West Bengal set to go to polls this month, a fierce showdown has erupted in New Delhi between the Mamata Banerjee-led Trinamool Congress and the Election Commission of India. A TMC delegation had gone to meet the ECI today to complain about some poll officials allegedly having links with the Bharatiya Janata Party. However, the situation turned ugly as the TMC leaders claimed that they were told to, quote, get lost barely after the meeting started.
I want to tell you what the election commissioner, chief election commissioner told us within 7 minutes of the meeting. Get lost. This is what the chief election commissioner told the Trinamool Congress delegation.
India's poll body had a different version though. As per reports, TMC MP Derek O'Brien started shouting in this meeting, after which the Chief Election Commissioner Gyanesh Kumar asked him to maintain decorum. Meanwhile, the ECI took a swipe at TMC as well in an unusually sharply worded social media post. They stressed that elections in West Bengal would be free of fear, violence, intimidation, inductment and booth rigging. In response, the TMC hit back at the ECI, emphasizing that the upcoming assembly polls must be free from Delhi's control, political bias and double standards. On the other hand, the Bharatiya Janata Party has blamed TMC for its rude behavior towards the Chief Election Commissioner.
इन्होंने बदतमीजी की होगी और डेरिक को तो आदत है जोर जोर से बोलने का। वो समझ रहे हैं कि राज्यसभा में जिस तरह जोर जोर से चिल्लाते हैं तो वहाँ चिल्लाए होंगे तो चुनाव आयोग ने कहा होगा keep quiet.
But the TMC found support from key opposition parties. For instance, the Samajwadi Party chief Akhilesh Yadav sarcastically commented that everything will fall in its place if the ECI itself is disbanded. Aam Aadmi Party Supremo Arvind Kejriwal alleged that the poll body is taking instructions from the BJP. This controversy, remember, assumes significance as the Trinamool Congress has been at loggerheads with the Election Commission of India over the special intensive revision of the SIR of electoral rolls, which has led to the deletion of 9.1 million names from the voters' list. As a result, West Bengal's electorate has shrunk almost 12% since last year. The TMC has challenged the SIR in the Supreme Court of India, opposing disenfranchisement of millions of voters. In fact, the TMC has claimed to have been unfairly targeted as well in this process. 4 districts, they say, that have seen the largest number of deletions are Murshidabad, Malda, North 24 Parganas and South 24 Parganas. The TMC secured 85 out of 98 seats, falling in this region during the 2021 assembly elections. The Mamata Banerjee-led party has also raised concerns over a large number of Muslim and Matua voters being deleted. Last week, hundreds of people gherawed 7 judicial officers in Malda's Motapadi for many hours and attacked them. These officials were adjudicating the fate of the voters whose status was called into question via the SIR exercise. The Supreme Court not only slammed the state administration for its complete failure and inaction, but also entrusted the probe to India's National Investigation Agency, or the NIA. Earlier in the day, West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee walked down from her house in a huge roadshow to file her nomination from the Bhawanipur constituency. She's being challenged by the leader of opposition, Shuvendu Adhikari. West Bengal, remember, will go to polls in 2 phases on the 23rd and 29th of April, while the results will be declared on the 4th of May. Shifting focus now, America's economic embargo on Cuba is working as a collective punishment for the common people of the Caribbean island, making the situation worse. Donald Trump imposed an oil blockade as well on Cuba after the capture of Venezuela's president, Nicolas Maduro. This has left Cuba without energy supplies, triggering fuel shortage that has paralyzed the Caribbean nation. From health system and public transportation to production of goods and services, the embargo has disrupted daily lives in Cuba.
It is the most comprehensive, the most complete, the longest-lasting system of coercive measures ever imposed against a whole country, against an entire people. It must stop. This abuse cannot continue.
Hundreds of Cuban women gathered in Havana to protest against Donald Trump's energy blockade against Cuba. The rally was organized by the Federation of Cuban Women, which is an organization linked to the government and the Communist Party. Cuban First Lady Liz Cuesta and daughter of former President Raul Castro were also present at this protest.
We are here defending the socialist revolution. We are against the genocidal blockade that is suffocating us.
Cuba produces, remember, less than 40% of its total fuel consumption. Last week, the Russian tanker carried 730,000 barrels of crude oil that arrived on the island. This was the first vessel which was allowed by American forces to dock at the Cuban port in the last 3 months. The US and Cuban governments are now engaging on the diplomatic front, but the extent of these negotiations remain unclear at the moment. Djibouti is all set to hold presidential elections on the 10th of April. The Horn of Africa nation has been ruled, remember, by Ismail Omar Guelleh since 1999. After 5 consecutive terms as the president, Ismail Omar is now seeking a 6th term at the age of 78. Ismail Omar Guelleh is one of the longest-serving leaders of Africa. He has turned the country into an international military and maritime hub for both United States of America as well as China. The country's location plays a major part in this. Remember, Djibouti sits at the Bab al-Mandeb Strait that connects the Red Sea to the Arabian Sea via the Gulf of Aden. This is a crucial choke point which allows trade between Europe and Asia. France, Japan, America and China have all their troops stationed in Djibouti. Houthis of the Yemen control the other end of the Bab al-Mandeb Strait. In a volatile and strategically important region, Ismail Omar casts himself as the guarantor of stability. Just over 256,000 people are eligible to vote in Friday's election. Omar and his opponent, Mohammad Farah Samatar, will be on the ballot, but the incumbent is likely to emerge victorious. Human rights organizations, meanwhile, have accused Djibouti's government of repressing dissenting voices. It ranks 168 out of 180 in last year's Press Freedom Index by Reporters Without Borders. He won the re-election in 2021 with 97% of the vote in a ballot largely boycotted by the opposition. That was meant to be his final term, but the parliament voted to remove the 75-year age limit for presidential candidates. This opened the way for him to seek yet another presidential term. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Race to Power. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Bye-bye.
In this rapidly changing world, is your health keeping pace? Best practices and breakthroughs busting the hype with real insights. The timeless power of yoga and ancient healing. Good food, good mood.